The title of my new book, it comes out on November the 4th, is The Gaslit Brain. And the subtitle is Protect Your Brain from the Lies of Bullying, Gaslighting, and Institutional Complicity. So that's kind of a mouthful. If I just break it down, basically what I look at is abuse cultures, specifically in the workplace. And I'm really interested in how abuse not only affects the brain of the target, how it affects the brain of bystanders, and how it affects the brain of the individual actually abusing. And I'm was very curious, like, how do people's brains get constructed in this way? What's going on for them? And how does it manifest in our workplace relationships with them? I was also incredibly confused, really, and I'm a researcher by training. So when I get confused, I go to the research and I try to find the answers that I'm looking for. And really, what I could not understand was the institutional complicity part. I mean, it makes sense to me that someone is abusive. We're just going to encounter that. We've always seen it. It happens. Someone is abusive. I get that. I understand that they target certain people and it really hurts them. That makes perfect sense to me. What I don't understand or couldn't understand until I wrote this book is, why do the higher ups, why do we see leadership and HR navigate this whole crisis by oftentimes pushing the victim out and re-victimizing them while carefully protecting the abuser? That doesn't make sense. So, but after writing this book, it makes a lot of sense, and the brain science gives us a whole bunch of answers as to why that's happening. And the reason why I think it's important is because the more we know about why higher ups are not going to do the right thing, even though we know them and we've seen them be wonderful people, and we know they have a family, and we know that they've been leading the institution for this period of time, and you don't get up to that position unless you're a good leader, right? We believe all those things. And yet, when we get into an abuse situation, a bullying or harassment situation, and we report it, the next thing we know, the institutional leadership turns on us, the victim, or the messenger of the abuse, which is what I was. I was the messenger. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Obviously, we can't do a deep dive into the brain science, but just trust me when I say everything that I talk about today is grounded in research. So it's in psychological, psychiatric, medical, or mostly neuroscientific, neurobiological research. Trauma prevention. So because, as we all know, and Deb knows best of all, it is incredibly difficult to change the laws. The laws are very stuck, and also there is a battle that goes on with and workplace blue. Sorry, and workplace abuse is a leader in this field. They are battling for the proper law, which I believe is the proper law, because it holds the institution accountable. And that's why I'm talking about institutional complicity. And as you know, in criminal law, if you're complicit in a criminal act, you're held accountable. And that's what I want to see humbly alongside end workplace abuse. That's what I want to see. That's the legal change that we need. And I'm a big believer in education. And I think as soon as that law comes into force, you will find leadership and HR and everybody else get educated on why we must stop abuse, why it's harmful, and everything else to do with it. But without that law, without that deterrence, without that push to stop normalizing abuse and instead halt it, as we've all seen, we are mired in this incredibly destructive culture. So gaslighting, and I'll talk with you in a very specific way about what it is and what it isn't. But just for right this moment, in 2022, it became the word of the year in Merriam-Webster Dictionary, which is fascinating. The reason they chose it as word of the year was because it was looked up 1,740% more frequently than it had been in the past. And the word came into popular consciousness a long time ago. It came into our culture in 1944, but it's not until 2022 that it absolutely is on everybody's radar and everyone's trying to understand it, figure it out, and keep safe from it. In 1944, it originally came into the popular vocabulary in romantic relationships. So it was about a husband who's trying to make his wife believe that she's insane. And the reason it's called gaslighting is because what he was doing is dimming the gaslights around them. This is in the 19th century. And she'd be like, I think the lights are dimming. And he would say, oh, no, they're not. They're not dimming at all. What are you talking about? And it's just such a small thing, but it started to erode her confidence. Then she would hear sounds in the attic. Well, he was making the sounds in the attic, but as her new husband who adored her, when she said to him, I hear sounds in the attic, he would say, I don't hear anything. It's silent. He built on this kind of erosion of her trust in her own perceptions to make her slowly but surely think that she was stealing things, she was forgetting things, etc., etc. Don't worry, she gets saved. It's a Hollywood movie, and she gets saved by a knowledgeable policeman. But most of us don't get saved when we're being gaslit. So that's why we need to understand how it works. So I'm just going to read you this definition that Merriam-Webster Dictionary gives. It's the psychological manipulation of a person, usually over an extended period of time, that causes the victim to question the validity of their own thoughts, perception of reality, or memories, and typically leads to confusion, loss of confidence and self-esteem, uncertainty of one's emotional or mental stability, and a dependence on the perpetrator. So you can imagine psychologically and neuroscientifically, like what's happening in your brain, how serious this is. This kind of manipulation is toxic for the brain. The brain's job is to make sense of a ridiculous amount of incoming data. The brain's job is to make sense of all kinds of data coming from the body. Your temperature, your heart rate, your blood pressure. Are you sweating? Are your muscles tightening? Is your gut clenching? Are you feeling rested? Are you feeling like your digestion's working? All of our, we don't even, unconsciously, we are processing massive amounts of data. And then think of all the data coming in from the environment. If someone is eroding your belief that you can decode all this data, it's very destabilizing on a brain level. The brain's job is to answer questions, and all of a sudden it's like, I can't answer the question. I'm not sure what this means. I don't know what to do. I better lean on whoever it is that's in power, who now oftentimes they will take a sort of savior role. They're gonna save you, but in actual fact, of course, they're not. So with gaslighting, they don't, in the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition, they say in the 2022 that the word has taken on a more intense and kind of forbidding meaning, which has to do with personal abuse as well as political abuse. And they don't specify workplace per se, but I'm going to show you the ways in which it manifests in the workplace. I'm sure many of you have experienced it.